Hey everybody, and welcome back to another max velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be talking about how winter will be making a comeback across the United States over this weekend, and we'll also be discussing the next big storm that'll bring another winter storm and severe weather to the United States next week. I'll give you the latest breakdown on both of these situations and more in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today. We're going to begin with the eastern half of the United States. That is where we've been seeing some severe weather down in the southeast, along with a winter storm that has actually been impacting areas back over in the Michigan Peninsula. And this is where we're still seeing a little bit of snowfall this afternoon and evening. This will eventually move out as we head into Saturday and Sunday. And all of this is originating from a very large low pressure system that's now moving into Canada. This will all be out of the United States most likely by tomorrow night. One thing to note though with the severe weather today, you might notice the convection is much larger just south of Louisiana. We are lucky that we're not seeing those storms that are in the Gulf of Mexico, because those are producing some significant severe weather off the coast. A lot of damaging winds obviously going to be happening from those sort of storms, but otherwise things will start to move out. One big thing with this storm though is that we're going to see a huge slew of colder air come out of Canada over the next 24 hours. This will extend into areas like Texas and even into Florida. Some of those areas could see below freezing temperatures, and I know we're in mid-March. It's crazy stuff. I'll give you more details on that here in just a moment. But over the next 24 hours, we'll continue to watch some snowfall back up in the upper Michigan Peninsula. Showers and storms will continue tonight across the southeast before all of that moves out by tomorrow. A little bit of light snow, maybe isolated amounts going into Sunday, early Sunday morning, and that'll primarily be across the northeast. That'll be from the back end of the low pressure system. But notice by Monday, there's hardly anything in the United States. The only stuff they'll be watching is back on the western half of the United States, which a lot of that will just be a little bit of snow in the mountainous regions, but otherwise a very strong high pressure system will be dominating the United States. So very good news there. We will not be talking about any crazy showers and storms for most of next week. However, it's not going to last forever. We're going to see one little low pressure system most likely going to Wednesday. This could bring some winter snow potentially to areas in the Midwest and the northern plains. But unfortunately, the much bigger storm will arrive on Thursday. And you might be thinking, why is it always Thursday? This is the third Thursday in the last 4 weeks that we're going to see the potential for significant severe weather in areas like Texas. It's pretty wild stuff. But we'll have another storm on Thursday. This will be also fairly large. It'll begin with more of a severe weather threat that could actually extend through areas in Kansas and Missouri. This will be my main focused area, it looks like, for right now on Thursday. Now, things always change this far out, especially since we're talking about almost a week from today. But this will be an area to watch for some severe weather Thursday and Friday, and also the threat for a winter storm may come out of this. Now, what type of snow will we see? Will we see freezing rain that will accumulate into ice? That sort of stuff is still very uncertain, especially since we're 6 days out, but it is something to watch for once we go closer to Thursday and Friday of next week. But the big talk is the massive winter comeback that we're going to see in the United States really over the next 24 hours. It all begins tonight. We'll be seeing a pretty large cold blast move through the Midwest. This will all start to move down to the south, and it will eventually reach into areas like Texas and even as far south as Florida. Now, the one thing to note about this is that the cold mass of air will weaken a bit as it moves down to the south, but it will still be very notable. It will definitely bring a pretty big cold blast, obviously, to the southern half of the United States. And this is where we'll be watching for the threat of below freezing temperatures, especially Sunday morning. I'll show you more details on that here in just a second. Once we go into next week, warmer air does really return across the country, but eventually we'll see another little cold blast, it looks like, going into next weekend. That would be behind that next low pressure system. Does not look like it'll bring widespread freezing temperatures. Now, in terms of the watches and warnings across the United States, we have freeze warnings in effect, actually, for those in Arkansas back through northern Georgia, and there are also freeze watches that extend into northeast Texas. I would expect this to extend further to the west by the time you see this video, or even maybe by the time of tomorrow. We'll probably see some of those enter into areas like Oklahoma and as well as North Texas. In terms of where the freezing temperatures will be on Sunday morning, this is an estimate. It actually could be further to the south than this. It could be slightly further to the north of this. But if you see any of these blue areas here that extend as far south as central and southern Mississippi, those areas could drop below freezing, at least temporarily, going into Sunday Sunday morning. So cover plants, any sensitive vegetation. You really need to make sure you're doing that sort of stuff because there will be below freezing temperatures. Even near the Red River Valley in North Texas, we could actually see some areas get into the mid-20s for low temperatures on Sunday morning. So very cold air is coming. And also for those in the southeast, very similar story. This is where our freezing line is likely to be. Again, it's an estimate. We very well could see this a bit further down to the south and a little bit more of a better outline for you. Again, it will not extend into Florida, but even the panhandle of Florida, a few areas will get into the mid-30s as we go into Sunday morning. I would not be concerned about sensitive vegetation there, but just keep a close eye on your forecast because the smallest change could make a really big difference in this case. And in addition to this, the temperatures will feel much colder due to some light winds out of the north. We'll actually see really below freezing feel-like temperatures extend as far south as actually Florida into areas like southern Louisiana as well. And as far south as Houston, we could feel like the upper 30s going into Sunday morning. So very cold air will extend far to the south. Look up here in Kansas, by the way, almost down to 0 degrees for some of those areas for feel-like temperatures. So definitely a concern there. In terms of the winds, they really will not be that high, but there will be a little bit higher winds up to the north. But you can see across areas like North Texas going into Sunday morning, the wind gusts will be between 10 to 15 miles per hour, nothing that crazy. And in terms of our trash can wind meter going into Sunday morning for the southern plains, really just knocked over trash cans would be about it if you have an extended trash day due to the severe weather that we just saw. But other than that, that's what we're looking at here across the southern plains. Now, in terms of what we're going to be seeing going into next week from Thursday to next Monday, so again, we're talking about late next week into the following week, so from the 23rd to the 27th, colder air is to return across the western half of the United States from that next low pressure system. Eastern half will be dealing with warmer temperatures, especially down into Florida. We are likely going to see above average temperatures across those areas, and that is all due to a jet stream dip. Our trough will be back over here, so colder air will usher in. Then we'll have warm and humid air return back out of the Gulf of Mexico. This will really start to usher into areas like Texas, back through Florida, and as well as even into the northeast where we could see some warmer temperatures as that low pressure system, as you can see by Saturday, that low pressure system centered back up here. So we'll have much more warm and humid air come out of the Gulf of Mexico, and that'll eventually move into areas like the northeast. That is why we're going to see above average temperatures there. You also might be wondering, where is that severe weather potential going to be as we go into Thursday and Friday? Again, we have a lot of time in between now and then, so things will obviously change. But right now, it's probably going to be across the southern tier of the United States, probably closer to Texas through Oklahoma and into the lower Mississippi Valley. And as of right now, European model has been indicating that the instability going into Thursday night will likely be across the southern plains. The highest values again in North Texas, so we might see another severe weather outbreak down that direction. But again, we have several days until then, so no need to worry right now, but keep that in the back of your head. Thursday or Friday is when that best chance will exist, and eventually going into Friday and Saturday, we might see that threat actually exist down in the southeast. Very similar actually to what we're going to see, or what we just saw in Texas over the past 24 hours. So this might be a fairly similar event, but probably not identical. I'll give you more details on that in our next forecast. Make sure to subscribe down below, like the video, and click the bell icon so you get notified when we go live. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting and All Dense Repair.